7_D. Now, I have this book, When Blacks Ruled Greece and Rome, The West Maritime Civilization Before Ancient Eurasian Conquest by Dr. Rufus Jimerson. Now, there's some things he says I totally disagree with, man. But I just want to make my point, and I want to show you something. You need to pick up on certain things. This is by a black man. Um, right here, I'm going to go to this chapter where it says, Chapter 4, Trade, Commerce, and Wealth accrued from ancient Asia. The first Asians were black. All right. The original Ethiopians, the Berbers, the Copts, Nubians, the Zagawa, the Moors, the people of the Sine, the Hindus, the Khmer, the Laba, the Chinese, and the islands of the Pacific Ocean and Indian Sea were black. Most of these inhabitants were migrants out of Africa in antiquity. Archaeological evidence points out that the oldest modern man of Asia, dating back to 100,000 years, was characteristically black. Modern man was born in Africa more than 200,000 years ago in the Great Lakes region. Recent research suggests that the date was premature since they have found tools from black Homo sapiens in Libya dating back to 500,000 years ago. Up until the vast Aryan invasion in the 5th century of the Christian era, black migrants from Africa were the dominant inhabitants from the Philistines to the Philippines, including Arabia and China. Asia was predominantly populated in antiquity by black people. I mentioned that over and over again. The first Indians were blacks of Sudanese, Egyptian origin. These migrants initially settled in the Indus Valley between present-day Pakistan and India. Remember, you got the Hindu Kush area. They created the first monumental civilization in Asia, which thrived to 2000 BC, when Indo-European Aryan tribes began their invasion and precipitated a decline. At the end of the civilization, by 1300 BC, the Indus civilization had a population of over 5 million. Their inhabitants developed new techniques in metallurgy, copper, bronze, lead, and tin. The Indus cities, I'm going to read, the Indus cities were renowned for their urban planning, baked brick houses, elaborate draining systems, and water supply systems. Independently, the Chinese Empire rose to bring civilization to the eastern heart of Asia. A genetic study of the University of Fudan reveals that it was blacks out of Africa for 100,000 years who first populated the south of China. Their descendants, the Nakas, are present today in China. Much of the original blacks have been absorbed by the interbreeding with current Mongolian type who came from the north. Now, the original so-called Mongolian type were Negroes anyway. All right, there's some things I disagree with this guy on, but I'm making my point. All the Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambridge, Bondage, Laos, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia were first inhabited by black people. Some departed to go and populate Australia 50,000 years ago. They represented those that originated many civilizations in the region. With a system of matrilineal royal succession unique to the black world, they too were partly absorbed by the Mongolian element. Further north in the Pacific, blacks became the first inhabitants of Japan and the Philippines. They were described as having fuzzy hair and thick lips. All right, Japan was first populated by Africans before the arrival of the current Mongolians. The Philippines were populated by black pygmies called Ajita. They are present today as Africans in diaspora. All right. The inhabitants of China were black Africans who arrived there about 100,000 years ago and dominated the region until a few thousand years ago when the Mongols advanced into that region. And the Mongols originally were black themselves, dude. But I digress. The Mongol onslaught drove them into Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. China's first two dynasties, the Ji and the Shang, were largely black African. These Africans would carry martial arts developed in the Horn of Africa to China. This form of fighting is today called Tai Chi, Kung Fu, and Taekwondo. Around 500 BC, an African living in India called Guatemala established Buddhism, all right, a religion that would come to dominate Chinese thought. The following scholars gave Guatemala credit for establishing this religion: Godfrey Higgins, Albert Churchward, Gerald Massey, Runoko Rashidi, and J. Rogers. Blacks reign over China. Shang Dynasty, 1766-1027 BC. Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 AD. And the Yuan Dynasty, 1271 to 1368 AD. The most famous Chinese sage, Lao Tzu, was described as black in complexion. Apparently, Africans played a pivotal role in starting what is called Chinese civilization. Now, you know, Buddha's mother was Maya. So his mother was a spiritual priest. So that's the connection of America, um, Africa, and Asia, you know, with Maya. I told you Maya was in ancient Egypt. Maya was a spiritual priest that came from the old land in the Americas. And then you had Maya was part of the 18th dynasty. And you always said Maya was a mother of Buddha. You see, I don't see. It's a connection. It's the connection is right there. So like you taking a line, you look at the alignment of these stars. These connections just connect itself right there, here and there. America, Africa, Europe, and Asia, man. They just connect to one another. I'm going to skip on even further, and I'm going to go right here. Ancient India's worship of the black ones. The ancient statues of gods in India, particularly before the Aryan invasion, had crisp hair, curled locks, flat nose, and thick lips. These blacks maintained their hegemony in India. All reveries of the Greek metaphysics derived from these black-skinned worshippers of African-looking deities. The books of metaphysics derived by the Greeks are more than 25 centuries old. Black Indians under Krishna, referred to as the Black One, fought hard to maintain their advanced civilization in vain against the marauding hordes of Aryans who completed their invasion by 1000 BC. Men were either killed in battle or forced to do hard labor for their masters. Women were raped and forced to have babies of their rapists, whom they were forced to serve as his concubine slave. Now, I'm going to go skip on a little bit. And what I really want to focus on, the main thing, is I disagree with some of the things the author says, but the main thing, the original people were black. But I'm going to show you this. Notice how this is over in Asia. This is over in Angkor Wat. Okay, the Angkor temples. Notice how they carved into rock. Look at it. And obviously you can tell those are Negroes. All right. Notice how they carved into rock. All right. And they use these images of Negroes in Asia, and you compare that to Angkor Wat. All right. Here's the Negroes in Asia. Right, but I'm gonna go even further. And go further down, and I'm going to show you a picture from the Chapas. This is so obvious, man. They carved in a rock. They did this in Asia. They did this in Africa. And they did it in the Americas. You can always tell that Negro. And we hear these dumbass white folks sit there and tell you talking about Afrocentricity myth. And first of all, nobody give you no damn myth. These people are black. I'm not no goddamn Afrocentric, all right? I'm just trying to tell you that the original people of this planet were so-called Negro people, all right? And you can obviously tell this was not no damn slave. This was a master. This was a ruler. This was a king, a man who ruled this area. This is not no damn Negro slave in no Asia. But these goofy were carved in a large rock. This is a big head carved in a rock. You find that type of carving over in Americas too. You have the Olmecs where they carved into large rock. And then you have the Olmec heads that's in Canada where they carved into the rock, along with a image of a female too. So they carved into rock all over. My emphasis, I'm trying to tell you this, that the brothers and sisters had a high technology where they traveled the globe and carved into rock. I showed you Abu Simbel before. Showed you those images of the Egyptian pharaohs and how they carved in the rock is so precise, and that was a big giant image of the image of the pharaoh. All right, but they carved into rock. They did that globally. That's the technology our people had, and it was the oldest civilizations were here in the Americas, man. And here we go. Here's another picture of Asia and some black guy over in Africa. Notice you look at the third eye. All right, and that is what I really want to emphasize, you know, right there, because we're gonna really have to learn our true history. And here I want to also mention this right here. He talks about from black to Indian red. All right, the primary color for any color is black. Indian red is a brown color. All right, remember I always mention that so-called reddish is nothing but brown. Indian red is a brown color derived from a mixture that dilutes color in the primary color. Referring to people with Indian red complexion as distinct from other black people is an attempt to alienate them in primary complexion, which is black or shades of brown. I'll read that again right there. Referring to people with Indian red complexion as distinct from other black people in an attempt to alienate them and the primary complexion, which is black or shades of brown. Black Indian, red, yellow, and white, and then he says there are so-called social constructs to divide into and demean people. Well, like I said, there's some things I don't agree with this brother on, but that part I agree with. He says that referring to the people with Indian red complexion as distinct from other black people is an attempt to alienate them in the primary complexion, which is black or a shade of brown, and that red is a different form of brown. All right. You have to understand that the reddish image is another form of brown. Some of my people have it like a reddish hue to them. It's just they just brown, but they have that little reddish look to them. And then this is the image of Egyptian artifact that was supposedly found around the area of the Grand Canyon in North America. And notice you see the image, all you see on their head right here is that of the serpent. Remember I told you the serpent kings were in here in America and the serpent mounds. And then you had Egyptian mummies. They had cocaine in their system. All right? And cocaine's a natural element to the Americas, man. So when you hear these idiots like some of these clowns on YouTube telling you that you just study African history and you don't concern yourself with being in the Americas because you're still in other people's history, that is nonsense. I told you before, this Negro professor at Howard claiming that when we said that the Mayans were black, which they were, that we still in other people's history, that jackass, that fat jackass, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But unfortunately, you're having young Howard students being miseducated by that coon. This is our history here in America. We need to reclaim every damn thing. All right, we need to reclaim every damn thing that's ours. When you look at this big ass Olmec head, that's a straight up Negro, man. I showed you so many pictures of the Olmecs and how they try to doctor these mestizos, modern day mestizos, who may got a little tan, but their hair straight. The Olmecs rocked a fro. Now black people come in various different hair textures, but the Olmecs rocked the fro. And I showed you when the image when it showed the Olmec man in the image of a damn animal body. It had an animal body and an Olmec head man, and the brother rocked the fro. And there's plenty of pictures with them rocking a fro or braids in their head. Ain't no way in hell these were some mestizos. Right? These people are lying, and they continue to lie. And they're mad at the fact that we're reclaiming our history and we're taking back all our damn history. And this is something that we need to take pride in and we need to love. Now, here's an image from Ecuador. Now, these racist white scientists tell you he's wearing a spacesuit and all that nonsense. This is an image for Ecuador. This is obviously Negro. It's not no black slave. Gold mask. Another image from Ecuador. All these are black people. Nose is gold. All right. All these are Negroes. You know this is gold. Pyramidal structure. And obviously he has a picture of Montezuma, who look like a freaking Zulu. All right. And I've shown you that picture before. And then I want to read what he says in here, how the largest Kemet Egyptian pyramid is found in North America, adding to the mountain evidence that Africans established trade posts and colonies in ancient times here in America. Like I said, I do not use the term African, but he's using this. The largest pyramid in antiquity has been found in Kentucky. It is larger than any other place in the globe. Despite the fact that Egypt has the world's most famous pyramids, the Great Pyramid of Cholula is the largest known pyramid on the planet. I question that one, but it is located in the city of Puebla, Mexico, just a 2 or 3 hour drive from Mexico City. This structure is an ancient Aztec temple. It stands 66 meters tall, and its base covers more than 200,000 square feet, more than 4 times the size of the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, which I mentioned before. The Great Pyramid of Cholula is hidden under a mountain. It is estimated to have been built more than 2,000 years ago. Cholula was the second largest city in Mexico when the first Europeans led by Cortez arrived. This conqueror and his Spaniard soldiers murdered 30,000 of the 100,000 that lived in the city of Cholula. They first came in peace or pretended to do so. Estimated, then stole their valuables as well as many lives. The residents of Cholula had mandatory universal education, as did all Aztecs. They introduced the world to popcorn, chocolate, chewing gum, advanced medicine to prevent muscle spasms during spasms. All right. These black Indians learned their advanced civilization from Olmecs and Phoenician sea mariners that ruled the old world. Okay, I consider America the whole world, but I just wanted to show you, mainly try to emphasize and show you the images of the rock carvings and how they carved into rock, and how they obviously did not use no copper tools. They had an ancient form of machinery, and I believe they had iron. They was able to carve and to cut into those rocks, man. And then look at the back on the Aztecs. Now I showed you this before. Look at the city in the back. Look at the building structures, man. Similar to what we see in America today. Similar to when you look at every state capital. I've mentioned this before in other videos. And I'm just showing you this book. I have numerous disagreements with this author. Because he keeps talking about the mixture of the Indians and Africans when they both were black people. And he does that. And then you talk about triracial and all this stuff. I don't agree with that. But this is still some good information, because he'll acknowledge the fact that, the quote, the original people over here are black. And then you talking about black and Indian mixture. I don't get into that. But this is I have numerous books that you can read. Dr. Rufus Jimerson. He has some good books, but that stuff I disagree with him kicking, man. He talking about African and Indian, where the so-called Indians were black. But he speaks upon it that they were different races coming mixing with each other. He acknowledges that the original people were black, and then he just talking about then the Africans coming mixing with the Indians. To me, that's off key. I don't agree with that, all that type of stuff. But the main thing I want to show you in this book is when he talks about how he showed you the image of the carving into rock. All right. You've seen those images of Angkor Wat when they're carving large statues into the rock. That was done here in the Americas. And so you had that connection in America, as well as Maya. Which you had the connection of Maya over in Africa. You had Maya being a mother of Buddha. And then you also had Maya, the spiritual priest, teachers here in America who went over to Africa, and they were the spiritual high priest and the priests and priestesses, and the teachers of ancient Egypt. All right, brothers and sisters. So that's another video I just did, and I'm going to do another one. I want to find my book of Insertima and show you what he said in that book, because these clowns going around saying that the original people over here weren't black. Insertima admitted that in his book that came out in the 90s. Now, came before Columbus in 77. That was done in Random House. He said it in the one, I think his books, the publisher was Transaction Press, what he said that the original people were here were diminutive blacks and Australoid blacks. And like, I want to say Mediterranean blacks are supposedly were originally people here in America, not no Mongoloid pale people. So when you hear Amawele Africa and them clowns run their mouth saying that the original people here weren't black, or you get the stupid Umar Johnson using the term pretendians, even Van Sertima acknowledged that the original people here were black. He acknowledged that in his book, African Presence in Ancient America, and then African Presence in Ancient America Revisited, and African Presence in Ancient America Respond to My Critics. He did that in all three of those books, but particularly that first one. That first one that's followed up to They Came Before Columbus. Like I said, that came out in 77. When Van Sertima wrote that book, he did appear in the Tony Brown show with his wife, I remember, years ago. His wife was on there, Jacqueline, that she appeared in Tony Brown show with him. Like, if I'm correct, she did. But she did a lot of his illustrations to his book. In fact, practically, I think she did all of the cover art. She's a light-skinned sister. Because I believe his first wife was a white woman. But she was a light-skinned sister. And I don't know if she's still alive today. But I think she might be. I believe she is. But yeah, she did his cover art illustration. And then there's a few pictures of her and Van Sertima together. But Van Sertima admitted that in his book, the follow-up to They Came Before Columbus, that the original people were black. You can get the first one anywhere because that was done by a major publication called Random House. The other one was done by smaller publications. But I think you should, if you can find it, get that book. I have it because I want to break that down. Because these Negroes like Angel Mears Jordan continue to lie, and they'll talk about Van Sertima, but they really don't know much about him. I've never really read his works. I read his stuff throughout the 90s, man. So I know about him. And I often question, how come these Negro scholars didn't talk about these black structures in Americas? All they did is talk about Africa, particularly Egypt. That's all they harped on. They did not bring the lands together. They did not connect it together. Look like the Wonder Twin Powers activate. They did not connect old Egypt to the Egypt over in northeastern Africa. They just talk about Egypt over to Africa, and then Negroes coming over here and building civilization, or they was a presence like Renoka Rashidi used to say, which is wrong. It wasn't no goddamn presence.